So how bad were malware attacks on a Mac in 2020? We're going to find out. Welcome back to my channel. So Malwarebytes, which is a program everyone probably knows about, did actually report for 2020. It just came out, and it's kind of giving you the state of how bad was malware in the year 2020 on a Macintosh. Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? What are the kind of attacks we're seeing more of, and what's actually happening with malware? So what I wanted to do in this video is just kind of go through that. We're going to find out if malware attacks in 2020 were getting better or are they getting worse. We're going to see who are they attacking more, consumers or businesses. And then we're going to see like the top 10 different attacks that are happening so you guys can be aware of them. And then also, what percentage of what kind of attacks are happening out there. And it'll give you kind of a good picture of what's happening with Macs and malware. If you're kind of one of those people that don't like ransom attacks and ransomware attacks and all those other things, you want to watch this video just to see what the state is. How bad was it in 2020? What can you do, or what should you actually look for to kind of discover if you might be having an attack, or maybe you got something on your computer that infected it. So we're just going to go through this report from Malwarebytes. And again, they're a great company. I'm not affiliated. I'm not sponsored by them, but I'll have a link to the report so you can read the whole thing. It's extensive, but you can read that whole report in the video's description. I'm just going to share some of the details with you just so you guys can kind of watch it in a quick video and just kind of touch on the highlights of the Mac ecosystem and malware for the year 2020. So without further ado, we're going to dive into all the numbers and all the different types of viruses you can get, or what people are seeing around the United States and the world. So let's go. All right, so right off the bat, the very surprising thing is Mac detections in 2020, they went down compared to 2019. So look at this chart here. The total number of detections in 2019 was about 120 million, and in 2020, it was only 75 million detections by Malwarebytes. So that's a reduction of about 38% from 2019. That's huge. If you look at the business one though, the business actually went up 31%. The consumers went down 40%, and the big difference there is there's way more consumers. You can see the numbers up there in the chart. So the negative 40 offsets the other raise. But why did the business go up so much when everything else went down? They think it's due to the pandemic. The pandemic really kind of caused people to move out to the office, go to their homes, and there was a lot of open holes there, so people try to attack those. So really quickly going through the bullet points, in 2020, there was basically a huge deduction by 38%. Consumer Mac Malwarebytes detections actually dropped 40%, but business increased by 31%. And the reason is just obviously the pandemic. They think, they're not 100% sure. And, just for reference, PC actually went down also by about 24%. So even PCs saw less attacks in 2020 versus 2019. Okay, so next let's go over what kind of detections is Malwarebytes finding, and let's define what they are. The first one's called PUPs, or potentially unwanted programs. These are programs that may include advertising toolbars or pop-ups, and they usually come with software that you download but you didn't actually ask for. So those are PUPs. The second one is adware, which we're that's pretty common, and that's going to be a form of malware that hides on your device and serves advertisements. Some of them are basically lurking back there, monitoring your behavior so they can serve you really good ads that you didn't want. And then the last one is malware, which is more of the malicious. They call it straight out malware here at Malwarebytes, but it says it's an umbrella term. So it's hostile, intrusive, and intentionally nasty malware, and it seeks to disable, damage, hold things ransom. It's kind of like the human flu. It interferes with the normal functioning of your computer, and they can either do it for bragging rights or stealing money, usually from the backdoor data stealer or crypto stealer. So that's the worst one, and that's called malware for this example. So out of these three, overall, the PUPs represent about 76% of all Mac detections. That's the highest, 76%. The next is going to be adware at 22%, and believe it or not, malware only accounted for 1.5%, the really bad stuff, of all detections here. So that's really good news. Now, what malware, that last part went up 61%, but it still only represents 1.5% of the total overall, and that's really good when you consider it. All right, for the next slide, let's take away what's important here. If you look at the three bubbles, you have Nebula, Teams, and Consumer bubbles. Nebula is kind of the enterprise program that Malwarebytes sells. Teams sells, that's usually for small business. And then Consumer is the Malwarebytes consumer product. So that, obviously Nebula is going to be enterprise. So what you can take from this is you can see that 37.2% of all the detections are PUPs or potentially unwanted programs for Nebula, which is enterprise, and 75% or 76% are for consumer. So what's the difference? Why is there such a big difference? Well, with Nebula and enterprise, they say a lot of, when you're in enterprise, you have an IT staff that really controls what you can download and what you can't download software usually that they don't accept. So, and consumer-wise, you can download anything you want. And that's the really big reason why you have problems this way that are a lot different from enterprise to consumer. If you look at the malware as well, 2.8%, that's the really bad stuff versus 1.5 on consumer. The difference there is these people that want to do stuff really bad and get information usually target companies where they can get more money or more information. So it's a little bit higher there as well. One thing that I took note from this article was the potentially unwanted software includes cleaning apps a lot of times, like apps like advanced cleaners. It represented more than 76% of these detections for PUPs, potentially unwanted software. So if you're cleaning if you get a cleaning thing that pops up and it says download me, don't do it. If you go and do your research, there's some good ones out there, but just don't start downloading stuff because it probably came from a piece of software that was downloaded accidentally from before, and it could lead to really bad things. All right, now here's the top 10 malware that actually affects Macs, and this is going to be the bad stuff. And if you look at this represents the top 10 of them represent 99% of all of it. So it's pretty much listed here, and there's a lot of rogue ones, little small ones out there, but this is the top. And you can see 80% of them is the top one. And I'm going to show you what just the top 3 or 4 are here. So let me show you what those are. But go ahead and take a look at the top 10 here, and then we'll go ahead and show you what they actually mean. All right, so out of that list, I'm going to go through the first 5. OSX generic suspicious. That's just what Malwarebytes uses to tag files that look suspicious, and they can be, hostile, intense, intrusive, intentionally nasty malware seeks to invade, damage, or disable computers. So they'll basically detect it and remove that file. And that's the generic one that makes up 80%. The next 4 are very specific. So the next one in here was the OSX fake open file opener, and this basically is what it does. More or less is it sets itself as the default application to open a huge amount of file types and promote the use of potentially unwanted programs known as system optimizers. So if you look at this, it's going to have these pop-ups come open, and it makes you open up programs that may not want to open up and things like that could cause problems later. So this is one that they detect, and this is number 2 on the list, the most common from Malwarebytes on a Mac. Number 3 is this ThiefQuest. And OSX ThiefQuest, and it says it's a detection name for a data stealer that pretends to be ransomware, targeted systems running macOS. And I want to come back to this one. Remember ThiefQuest in a second, because this is the most unusual one that's new. That's number 3 in the list. Number 4 in the list is this OSX Bird Miner, and what this says, it's named for a crypto miner that runs in a Linux emulator on a Mac OS system. So symptoms, Mac are they're affected by slow CPU or high CPU usage, and when they run the activity monitor, it actually will stop for them, so they can't detect it. So anyways, this is the 4th most common one right here, and then the 5th one is going to be called OSX Search Awesome, and this is a detection name for an adware that targets Mac OS systems. Users are affected systems may see these warnings during install, and then it says type of source and infection. You can read all through this, but if this is all on the Malwarebytes page, if you want to look at those top 10. But again, I'm not affiliated with them. I just wanted to show you what they are and some more information about each of them. But the one I wanted to show you just to end this video is this ThiefQuest. All right, so here's ThiefQuest, and it basically was the most unusual malware seen in Mac OS in 2020 by Malwarebytes. And let me just give you the gist of it. It spread through apparently legitimate installers found on torrent sites, but those installers were infected and had different types of software in them. So what you would see initially is all your files getting encrypted really quickly, and you then had ransomware notices going out. And it would use like text-to-speech to say, you need to pay us and all this other stuff. Except that wasn't the actual case. After they took a deeper dive and look at this, ThiefQuest, it basically they looked at where you were paying and all that kind of stuff, and there was no way for them to know that you actually paid them. The addresses were all the same, and so that wasn't really the ultimate goal. Upon further investigation, what they learned is that it was a ransomware activity. It was really a cover for a massive data stealing event that included MS Office, Apple iWork documents, PDFs, images, cryptocurrency wallets, and more. So this kind of malware kind of changed. It showed you thought it was a ransomware, but it was actually doing something else underneath. So it was really unusual for Malwarebytes, and they wanted to list that as one of the most unusual ones of 2020, just to have some more information on it in case you actually see something like this come about. All right, so what do you think? I guess it makes a little bit of sense that everything's down a little bit. I mean, the world is kind of shut down a little bit at the same time as well. So, more businesses are being attacked now than the public just because of the way that the businesses had to go off-site. There's probably not as much security out there in that kind of an environment, and these hackers and everyone else, malware people, they actually just wanted to attack that while it was still fresh. I'm sure those things are being tightened up now. Businesses are, people are working remotely. There's probably a lot more security than there was when this actually started. But with the pandemic and stuff, it opened up a lot of holes, so that makes sense. The overall number of, malwares and all that kind of attacks actually went down, 37% for 2020 versus 2019. That was surprising to me. It also did it with Windows PC attacks as well. So that's also surprising. But again, I think the pandemic has something to do with it. And, maybe security software is getting better, but I doubt it. It seems like the hackers are always, one step ahead. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to share this. Hopefully this information is useful to people. It does show you kind of the state of, emergency or malware emergencies, I guess, and what you should be looking for and what are the kind of top ones you should expect on a Mac if you do get one. What kind of red flags should go off when you see something. And I hope it does help people. So just post some stuff in the comments to let me know if you like videos like this. And, I make a couple a week on all different technologies. Some of them are a lot funner than this. This is a little bit more of a heavy subject, but just watch the channel, subscribe, sit back, and we'll see you in a couple of days. Peace.